Hey there, welcome to this mod showcase of Red Storm Arsenal. This is a massive mod pack, and unfortunately, if I would want to do a full comprehensive review, this video would probably be about 3 hours long, because this mod adds you 105 units. Be advised, these units span from 1990s to 2040s. That means you're going to see some very futuristic weapon systems and stuff that doesn't exist. Now, on previous videos, I've had people saying, wow, why are the devs spending their time on this? Can't they fix the AI? This is not the devs. This is modders adding these ships. These ships are kit bashes, which means that you don't have to install anchor chain or sea lifter. You can just use the ships as are in-game without installing any complex mods like that. It also means that you're going to see some funky designs, but so far, I think they all look fairly credible. Now, we're going to start off with some of the US units, and I'm saying some, because, again, I cannot possibly cover all of them. It's going to be a very, very long list of either separate videos, or it's going to be a bit more of an extremely long video. We're going to start out with the Hercules. This is a fictional, Mark 7 fictional. Instead of the RGM 1110 THASM, this variant was designed with the original Mark 7 guns found on the Iowa. This was considered the cheaper option, but it was not built as the Mark 7 was outdated by that point. Okay, so what can you do? Well, you can defend yourself rather well. You have a couple of RIM 66 M5. This is the Standard Missile Block 3, 90-mile range. Very nice. It's a VLS version. Okay, but I'm seeing turrets. So where are the VLS? Well, here. Amidships. There's a massive VLS block there. You can see that they do still have all of those guns. Are they going to be useful? Well, I don't know. If everything else has failed, perhaps? Other than that, probably not. Anyway, she carries a lot of those missiles. She carries 84. If that doesn't quite do it for you, don't worry. We also have other options. Actually... Oh, sorry, yeah, this is the RAM. The RIM 116B RAM rolling airframe missile. And it is designed to defend the ship at short range. Let's see if we can locate those things. Nope. Can't find them. Where are you hiding them? You got so much stuff on the superstructure. Here, right there, port side. That means they're probably also going to be on the starboard side. It's a short-range defense addition to CWIS, and it's going to make missiles even more difficult, or rather, it's going to make it even more difficult for missiles to hit you. Aside from that, of course, we also have some offensive options. Oh, hold on, there's more. This is the Standard Missile 6, the RIM 174, with a range of 260 miles. Again, all of these missile ranges that you will see, especially defensive, so surface to air, great on paper. In practice, I rather doubt you'll be able to actually get them on target, because they simply won't be able to get guided over there. It is not really something that the radar can do. Of course, the radars, yes, will also have improved. These things even have GPS guidance for precision strikes against surface targets like ships and land installations. Against a ship, I don't see how a GPS guidance is going to be that useful, unless you have the exact location of the ship, but that would require a radar. Against a surface strike or land installation, yeah, I imagine it can be useful, because you always know where that building is going to be. It's not suddenly going to move. As for the rest, we have the TLM-E. This is the 1,000-mile range of the Tomahawk land attack version. Only anti-surface, so only against surface installations. We have a couple of harpoons. This is the RGM-84L, 130-mile range. And we have the ASROC. So we still have the ability to launch torpedoes at great ranges out to 13.8 miles. Then it is mostly defensive. 406, well, okay, I wouldn't consider those to be defensive. 127s, that's 5-inch guns. We have 20mm phalanx/CWIS, noisemakers chaff, and even offensive ECM. Can this thing spot? Well, yes, I would say so. Her Spy 1D V200 can range out to 700 miles. We're going to see some fairly bizarre ranges. You're going to have an air search radar for 255. This is air and surface. Again, you will never use this thing at 700 mile surface. Sorry, flat earthers, you're wrong. At least in sea power, you're wrong. This means that you'll not actually be able to see ships at 700 miles out. It would be funny if you did, but for that we do have some other options. You have aerial units for that. We also got the universal electronic countermeasures, so we can start jamming various frequencies, making it difficult for ships, missiles, radars, and other issues to potentially find this ship or lock onto it. Moving on to Kansas. We are not in Kansas anymore, although this 2025 fictional missile cruiser is, and she's quite capable. Again, the RIM 66M5, that's that 90-mile missile, 90-mile range missile. We have a couple of evolved Sea Sparrow missiles. They feel very old for a 25 or 2025 ship, but okay, this has been the choice of this particular loadout. What I find a bit weird about the whole setup is that it looks very clean. It looks like it has those stealth angles, if you will. And then they put harpoons on it. Just your standard harpoon launcher. At least make them VLS then. Because this doesn't really strike me as that useful. This would probably break up your radar concealment quite a bit. Anyway, they do have them. They got a couple of those T-line block E's. They got harpoons. They have a lightweight torpedo, anti-submarine warfare out to 12 miles. Keep in mind though, 12 miles might sound like a lot, but the enemy is also going to have better torpedoes on their ships. So it's great that they have it. It's questionable whether they'll live long enough to use it. Ticonderoga, she is still in service, although with a more fictional loadout. Ticonderoga now has the Standard Missile 2 Block 3. So 90-mile range, she maintains those. She has a couple of harpoons, land attacks, anti-submarine warfare torpedoes, but also the Sea Lance. Standoff anti-submarine weapons. See, now we're getting somewhere. This thing has 35-mile range. That is a nice and fast way to deliver a torpedo. And there she goes. So this Sea Lance is a fast missile, which is basically a Mark, I think it's a Mark 46. Let's see when it drops. Is it going to be Mark 46 or Mark 50 by this point? Keep in mind, it's a fictional design. Wouldn't be surprising if it's a Mark 50, which will be more advanced. There we go, it's a Mark 50. And this thing searches at 60 knots. Very fast. That means it's the same missile as what you're launching, yes? Yeah. Yeah, it's the same torpedo. Lightweight torpedo, which you can also throw out of a helicopter if you so desire. They carry two SH-2G, which do get those new airborne torpedoes. They get anti-ship loadout, in which case they get harpoons. Anti-tank loadout, giving you Mavericks, and of course ferry gives you more range. Nice loadout for this ship, but of course the Ticonderoga is not something you just get for her weaponry. You also get it for her search capabilities. 432-mile range for the air search. Then we have another air search for 255. This is on a different band. There's the S-band for the UHF band. Surface search radar, that's still the SPS-55. Like it doesn't get a whole lot better. She does come with a nice towed array, which can keep you somewhat safe from submarines. That is, if you're not going too quick. And of course you also have your helicopters to go for additional hunts. That's pretty much it for the Ticonderoga. And then we have this massive aircraft carrier. This is the United States class. And it comes with a host of defensive options. You can see we have the RAM, so that's a short-range defense. We have the evolved Sea Sparrow missile. We have the Standard Missile 2. We have the Standard Missile 6. That's that 260-mile range thing. A couple of defensive options, including offensive ECM. Great, but what can the flight deck do? Well, that's where we can find some additional firepower. Because this ship carries the Super Tomcat 21. This is a fighter, which can still do duties against other air units, but it can do a whole lot more than that. You got your AIM-9X for short-range action. You got your AIM-120D for, I'm going to say mid-range action. Air-to-air, that is. And you got the AGM-174B for long-range action, 130-mile range. Pretty much the Phoenix Plus. Then we're going to get into ground range, anti-ground range, that is the Harpoon, 140-mile range. And keep in mind, this thing itself goes 933, so you can very quickly get somewhere, drop off your harpoons, and then fly very quickly back. Which is something that the A6s don't always do that well, but they might be able to carry more. That is, if I want to launch a Super Tomcat with an air to ship. Oh, you carry 4. And you get 2 AMRAAMs and 2 Sidewinders. How about that? What else can this thing do? Well, AGM-188. This is the L-HARM. Long-range, hypersonic, anti-radiation missile. 540 miles. Jesus Christ, that's a lot of range for a seed missile. It's also extremely fast at 4,000 knots. Hypersonic missile will be extremely difficult to intercept for the enemy. And, well, I wonder what happens if you turn your radar off. Because if you do that, will this thing still remember where that radar was? Or is it just going to fall out of the sky and do actually nothing? Don't know. AGM-88 is another anti-radiation missile, but this one has a slightly more human range of 160. Next we have the Mark 82, the GBU-12, the AGM-64, like it's not that special. We got the AGM-84K, the Slammer, standoff land attack missile expanded response, precision guided air-launched cruise missile to 145 mile range, which is nice. Although it kind of pales in comparison to that extremely 540 mile range hypersonic missile. As for the rest, CBU-100s, they can still drop the very old by this time Rockeye. And we have the M61 in case everything else has failed and you just want to do a strafing run with a 20mm gun. As for their sensors, they got lots. They even got a laser designator now. They got a second laser designator out to 40 mile range. Of course, if you're flying low, that won't quite work. 1,000 weapons channels in case you want to drop and guide 1,000 laser-guided bombs onto a target. As for defensive ECM, that's nice. That's going to keep you alive a little longer. We have access to flares and chaff as still. Radar warning receiver, air search out to 106 miles. This is air and surface search. And, of course, we still got the good old Mark 1 eyeball with some improvements, including infrared. That's just the Super Tomcats. The A6 has also received an improvement. And this thing can now be loaded out with the AIM-120. So you can turn this very, very, very old A6 into an AA bird. Which is a very interesting choice. I wonder how many it can carry. 4. I'm not sure why you would want to do this. I don't really see a reason for it. As for the Tomcats, if you put them on air-to-air, they carry 6 AMRAAMs. Air-to-air heavy carries 8. Long range carries 2 and one of those super long-range gunslinger missiles. Air-to-air intercept carries 2 AMRAAMs and 2 gunslingers. This one carries 4 gunslingers and 2 AMRAAMs. You've got options. I don't know why I would want to pick an A6 with AA. We do, however, have access to a lot of bombs. Mark 82 bombs. We can get strike precision with paveways. We can get seed. That is with the AGM-88, so the 160 mile range. And of course, they can still go after ground targets in their standard anti-ship role, with either the Slimy R against surface installations or the AGM-84N with 140 mile range against ships. Fly low, and the enemy AA shouldn't be that much of a problem. Advanced Hawkeyes give you a bit more eyes. They have surface search out of 350 miles. Beyond that, they're not that impressive. Yes, they have a defensive ECM jammer, which is useful because I typically try and shoot these things down as quickly as I can find them. EA6 Prowler. Very decent at electronic warfare, of course. I do wonder how far they can jam nowadays. Sent one of them up for me. Otherwise loaded out with the HARM, or rather its improved version. And finally, we get access to the S3B Vikings and the SH3H. The S3B Vikings capable of doing ASW, so anti-submarine warfare and anti-ship, but they're just not that good in an anti-ship role. They only carry 2 harpoons, and that'll be that. SH3, ASW Killer, ASW Hunter, or both. I still don't really see why you would want to pick either of these. Like, this is going to give you more torpedoes but fewer buoys. This is going to give you more buoys but no torpedoes. This is going to give you both. I like both. Let's do both. Okay, you, my friend. we are going to shine a light in the eyes of everybody else. It might not be that terrible. Okay, it's pretty terrible. It's 200 miles. Yeah, oh, sorry, it's 300 miles. Jesus. So that Prowler can jam everybody and everything. Isn't that nice? Oh, bloody hell, I've only covered the US, and even if only a few ships of the US. And it's already 15 minutes. Okay, this is going to be a long one. Knox class, fictional, of course. This one has been upgraded with some VLS, so you got some rams to defend yourself. You do get a lot of them, but outside of that, you're not going to be able to defend the allies that well, because you do get access to the Standard Missile 2 with only 16 missiles. A few harpoons, we get a few sea lances as well, in case we're dealing with submarines. And of course, 22 Mark 50s, plus those sea lances, plus one helicopter, means that this is an exceptionally capable anti-submarine warfare ship. It was the first chopping board, on the chopping board they were to receive the latest air defense, such as the VLS and the RAM. Expanding the ASW role, they would also receive the Sea Lance and as the standard anti-submarine weapon. So yeah, a very capable ASW ship. Now let's quickly move on to the next faction, because I got China. The Chinese ships typically aren't that capable in the base game, so in this mod they have been modified a lot. They got a lot more ships. Again, not all of which I will cover. They even have crew on deck. What you're looking at right here is the Type 1143 Echo fictional. All of these things are, of course, fictional. They have an interesting loadout in the form of a couple of missiles. HQ-16 Red Banner to defend yourself. This is a 21.6 mile self-defense weapon. The Strike Eagle, Eagle Strike, gives you a 270 mile range anti-ship weapon. Supersonic, 206, Speaking is getting harder. 2,665 knot speed. Not as fast as a hypersonic, but hey, you might still have some challenges fighting these things. Unless you got a VLS bird, or you're going to throw lots and lots and lots of rams at this thing. You got the RBU 6000. Wow, that's a relic. I guess they can still be useful if this thing comes under torpedo attack. Other than that, Set 65 anti-submarine torpedoes out to 8 miles. That's cute. Then we have a couple of projectiles against aircraft, so just 9 miles. And finally a Sea Whiz. Lots of different sensor systems, but I think they're not all going to be that impressive. Like, from all the Chinese, or from all the ships and radars that I've seen, they're pretty much on par with what you get in the base game, in vanilla. They do, however, get access to the KA-28. They are helicopter carriers, not full flight deck units, which are carrying a couple of YU-7 Fish. That's a 7.6 mile range anti-submarine weapon. RGB-1 is a sonobuoy, RGB-3 is a sonobuoy, FAB-250 is a bomb, FAB-250 is a bomb. Oh, sorry, the RBK-250 is a bomb, and they got S5 rocket pods. So this thing, at least in the contrast of this mod, I'd say is desperately outdated. Moving on then to Type 1164 Echo. For some reason, China just calls everything type, and then you get a random bunch of numbers. Well, probably not so random. But it does not make it easier to distinguish these things. I quite like the design. It looks like a more modern Slava. And they do have some much more modern weapon gear. You get the HHQ-9B SAM, shooting out to 107 mile range. It's a derivative of the F-300. So, very potent anti-air platform. Start respecting these ships or they will put you down. But then again, if you got a 140 mile harpoon, I still don't worry about this missile. The Red Banner SAM is a short-range defense. It is probably on par with the rolling airframe missile, so like that thing there. Then we have the Longsword 10. This is an anti-surface installation weapon, so out to 300 miles it's basically a cruise missile. But if you compare that to the US, it only has a third of the range. So in that sense, it's not that impressive. Strike Eagle. Yikes. No, again, Eagle Strike. Sorry. 6,500 knots, hypersonic anti-ship ballistic missile. 900 miles, 6,500 knots. Good luck. The only thing is, it has a minimum range, minimum at 120. Typically in sea power, you're going to see ships, I'd say in most scenarios, anywhere from 60 to 400 miles apart. So in those 60-mile scenarios, this thing won't work. You're going to have to point your destroyer, your missile cruiser in the opposite direction and just sail for 2 hours up until the point where you actually get into minimum range of this weapon. But once you do, you can start launching these things fairly aggressively in high numbers because they carry 64. Can I do a salvo with 8?
Confirmed.
Yep, there we go. So yeah, this is not something you want to be in a receiving end of. They do fly up vertically, or at least near vertical, because they are hypersonic ballistics. And that's 2,000... where's that? Super speed. They're still linked to the ship. Maybe once they actually acquire a target, are they going to come down? Nevertheless, I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of these things, because you're probably not going to get a whole lot of time to actually defend yourself. Altitude of 32,000 feet does mean you'll see them, but the problem then becomes, can you actually engage them? Because they're that fast. Yeah, they just ran out of juice, I think. Alright, so that is one of the offensive gear of the 1164. You also get the Swordfish ASW. 16.2 mile range, anti-submarine weapon. A couple of the, and I'm not sure why they put these on, anti-submarine torpedoes for 8 miles, and the rest is guns. We have the Type 1130, which I can't actually use unless I pick a target. Sorry.
1006. Hit track. 1.
Yeah, we hit them, but did that actually hurt you? No. Didn't actually hurt them. Okay, fine. Then we have access to the 130mm gun, the noisemaker, and the chaff. Interesting, no ECM on this thing. No ECM. Wait, how did you get hurt? Oh, you didn't. That's just part of the hull. As for sensors, probably some pretty potent sensors arrays. The Platina is the anti-submarine option. You got defensive ECM. 8-mile surface search and air search radar is a bit low. This is better. 216 miles. And we get an S-band radar out to 160 miles for air and surface search. Not as good as I was expecting.
Air search on.
But, okay. Maybe it's going to rely on some other things to detect. Oh, and did I mention it has a helicopter? It carries the Ka-28 Helix, which we have in various loadouts, which I just showed you as part of the carrier group. So anti-tank, well, anti-tank if you want to do S-32s against, sorry, S-5s against anti-tank duty, you're going to be very optimistic about the capabilities of a rocket pod. Moving on, the Type 45. This one is akin to the Kinder class, based on the hull of that. Lacks air defense. Oops. This is, however, a pretty potent anti-ship platform because it carries more of those Eagle Strikes. These ones are out to 270 mile range, which I think for sea power typically is plenty, but if you go with weapon systems out to 2040, that's not going to be enough. They also carry that RBU 6000, they carry the torpedoes, they're not that interesting, I'd say. The Type 001. This is their most modern aircraft carrier. Carries a couple of the Red Banner SAMs to defend itself, but it also carries a couple of the Eagle Strikes. I wonder where they're going to launch from. Here? Oh, that's an elevator. Tell me.
We'll go.
Where's that missile going to come out of? Because I'm seeing some defensive options here. But most of the time, if you got a Russian carrier, that is, they will launch from their flight deck. Oh, here's the VLS potentially. If that is what that is.
Engaging track 1, 0.
No,
0,
it just refuses to
5.
launch. Okay, maybe that's a work in progress, I'm not sure. As for their aircraft capabilities, because that is of course what this thing does best, the J9s. J9s armed with a couple of Thunderbolt missiles. Active radar long-range air-to-air missile. 108 mile range. If the AI knows how to use these things, they're going to be interesting to fight against. Because finally we have something that can actually shoot back at long range. We also get access to the YK-83KH Eagle Strike, so again 120 mile range anti-ship missile. We get access to the AS-10. That's I think it's not a great weapon. It is an anti-surface weapon, but then again, if everything has gotten such great AA range, then why the hell would you still have a 5.4 mile missile? Doesn't really make sense. S8 if you want to go even older with rocket pods. That is the J9. We also got the J7K, carrying mostly the same ordnance, except for some additional bombs. There's Karen again. What else? The KJ600, they got their own early warning platform, which is very useful, and a couple of YD-10 electronic warfare planes. Nice. That's going to be annoying to fight against. If you start getting jammed and then they start throwing hypersonic ballistic missiles at you, good luck. And Ka-28s if you want to do some additional anti-submarine warfare. At least that's what I would typically use them for. Okay, that was the Type 01. We got the Type 083. This is an interesting one. It's a submarine aircraft carrier. How does that work? I wonder that too. It's going to launch helicopters. I wonder what the animation's going to be like. Oh! Yeah, no, of course. That makes total sense. We're just going to put it on the back of the submarine and launch it from there. So, why would you want to do that? I don't know. I really don't know. Because if I want to do anti-submarine warfare, the last thing I would want to do is surface to launch a helo. That's definitely not going to extend my life very much. So why this thing is doing what it's doing, I don't know. It's a nuclear-powered submarine in active service with the People Liberation Army Navy. Originally a Delta III, its ballistic missiles were removed to create hangar space for the K-28, transforming it into a stealthy ASW platform. No. No. A stealthy ASW platform would not have to surface to launch a helo. And unless this is some sort of magic helicopter, you cannot launch this from below water level. So you're going to have to surface, at which point the enemy's going to go, aha, that's a nice juicy target, and shoot missiles or whatever at you. I just don't think this submarine makes sense. It does also come equipped with a couple more of those Eagle Strikes out to 290, anti-submarine torpedoes out to 20, and a couple of even Korund decoys. Although I have never really been able to make those things work as well. And finally the Type 91. This is a Han-class submarine capable of launching the torpedo against anti-surface and anti-submarine targets 20 miles, and the other one is the Eagle Strike out to 290 miles. Minimum range 25, but then again, if you got it within 25, you might wait a little bit and send a standard torpedo at it because they're more difficult to detect. Moving on quickly to the Soviets. A few of the Soviets, that is. How do you like the look of the new Kirov? This is the Kirov 2. And she is just bristling with missiles, even more so than the previous iteration. We have Gargoyle SAMs, out to 115 mile range. We have Gauntlet SAMs out to 8-mile range, just very short-range self-defense. We have 144 Grissom. These are short-range Tunguska missiles, well, at least mounted on the Tunguska, as part of the Cortex-Seawiz combined weapon system. Missile is fast, agile, and accurate all the way down to sea level and maintains good effectiveness against maneuvering, sea-skimming targets like Harpoon, which the US still uses in this mod at the cost of being extremely lightweight and short-ranged, a proper point defense interceptor. You carry a lot of them, and I imagine you can launch them very, very, very quickly. You can probably see them here, as part of the other defense system. That's the Korund, and that carries only 12,000 rounds. 1,200 wasn't going to make much sense. 1,200 rounds for a Suez is almost nothing. 12,000 makes more sense. And just look at the number of emplacements that they have for that. I'm seeing them on... Come on, camera. I think this weapon is still trying to target. There we go. We got them there. We got them on... there. We got them here. And then you have the other side on a similar level. So, yeah, this thing is going to defend itself rather aggressively. Offensive. Oh, sorry, there's even more. No, these are anti-ship missiles. This is the caliber. 410-mile range, but they're slow. This is a anti-ship cruise missile with subsonic speed and long range. Interesting. It trades the extremely high-speed penetrating dart terminal stage for a conventional subsonic terminal phase with a larger warhead, generally more useful against lesser defended vessels given its powerful warhead. What? It is more useful against lesser defended targets? Sure, given its powerful warhead. I would expect any ship missile or anti-ship missile to have powerful warheads, but maybe they mean in the sense that this thing is more useful if you're not that heavily defended, because you're so slow. You're fairly easy to intercept in that regard. Something a little faster. Well, not that much faster. Another ship missile with a range of 70 miles. That's seemingly... yeah, it's the Harpoonski. This is their version of the Harpoon. What about this thing, though? See, now we're getting somewhere. This is the Strobil, the 3M55 Onyx, Soviet high-performance supersonic standoff anti-ship missile. 320-mile range, but a heck of a lot faster than those Sizzlers that we have seen. The Sizzlers got less range, but... sorry, more range, less speed. These things have more speed, less range. Interesting. Getting a coordinated strike with these things is going to be interesting. Also, please take note of the sheer amount of missiles that these things carry. Like, this thing got 64 of those slow anti-ship missiles. It's got 16 fast... oh, sorry, 16 Harpoonskis. Then it has 64 of those. And the Gargoyles can also multi-roll. So, you're going to have to jam the hell out of this ship if you want to fight it. Because the moment that it spots you, it's going to unleash hell. And hell this time around is going to be even more than just 16 very heavy missiles coming at you. It's going to be even more than that. As for the rest, Set-65, ASW torpedoes, RBU, some defenses. Interesting, no offensive ECM. Where is your offensive ECM? Where's your defensive ECM? I'm not seeing it. It has tons and tons of radar systems, including the Mars Passat, which has a range of 405 miles. Skywatch, 3D air search radar, comparable to the US Scanfar. 24 missile channels, 24 weapon channels as well. Okay, how about the Orel 2? The advanced version. Carrying some Grizzlies, some Gauntlets, some Grissoms, 512 of those very quick short-range interceptors. A couple of shipwrecks with almost 500-mile range, but they're anti-surface. Numerous countermeasures, both active and passive, and incredible range. The modernized Granite has a much greater speed, range, and primarily improved electronics, and can effectively evade even against the latest air defense systems. Fun. You're gonna have some some beef with this thing. Lots of rounds for the RBU, a couple of self-defense rounds, and helicopters and planes. MiG-23s, fairly old if you ask me. Especially their loadout isn't that special. I'm not gonna launch a kedge at anything. AS-20, now we're getting somewhere. That's the Harpoonski, 70-mile range. You might still be kind of dangerous if you're launching these things against those 100 and something plus mile range AA defenses from either the Chinese or the Americans or both. KO-45. God, this thing is outdated. AS-14B. AS-11B. Now we're getting somewhere. The AS-11B Kilter, anti-radiation missile, 145 mile range. Send this in first. Kill off the Americans' radars, kill off the Chinese radars, kill off the Japanese radars for all I care, and then go on the offensive with some of those other, well, worse aircraft that you have access to. P-42, that's your radar aircraft. KO-45, P-42, carrying the APR-3 torpedo. This is your ASW options, sonobuoys, and K-27. Additional ASW slash... yeah, the sonobuoy, bomb, torpedo, and the kayak, which is again the Harpoonski. What else do we get? The Slava. Slava at this point, and that's, let's say this is 2030s, is very old, but she still got it. Sandbox, 450 mile range. 415, sorry, not 450. Fast missile, still potent. The structure is resistant to CWIS rounds. The electronic warfare suite is more capable at dissected jamming. The range has been improved. This is potentially an old cruiser, but don't underestimate her. It's a 2016 version. And if you get attacked by one of these with all of the missiles, and do they talk to each other? I imagine they do. So just send all of them and let the missiles sort it out between each other. Some defense in the form of the Gargoyle and the Gecko. Still some very old school torpedoes, but hey, if you want to do ASW, just send up your Helix. Let that thing do ASW. It can supposedly also do a strike mission with bombs. It can do close air support, anti-tank, and even anti-ship with a couple of kayaks, which means you get some harpoons. The Udaloy 3. That's a new design. It's VLS on the bow. Still torpedo launchers on the stern. Helo deck, double hangars. Nice. Gauntlets, Sizzlers, that's those slow-moving anti-ship missiles. Strobile ASM is the faster movers. We got the Sizzler land attack version out to 410 miles. And we get access to a couple of Silex out to 27 miles. I would have expected that they improved these, but they just still use the old SSN-14B. It's not that special. ASW torpedoes, guns, mortars, stuff like that. And we have here the improved Kilo. See, this thing carries the Sizzler land attack. So you can use it as a land attack sub. You can also use the USGT Physic torpedo out to 30 miles. And this exactly right here is why I wonder why some of these ships still have this. What submarine is going to approach you at 8 mile range if they got 30? Why would I even care? It's a dual-purpose heavyweight torpedo developed for the failed USAT 80 and the limited Test 71 torpedo programs. Can do both submarine and surface attacks. They also got the Test 71 Mark something. 13.5 mile range. Yeah, limited anti-ship roll. It has a limited anti-ship roll. But it's also anti-submarine. Okay. As for how much noise these things make... 137, but that's doing 11 miles. If I tell you to leave this formation, go to a head 1/3, and go to... I don't know, deep. 115, 96, 93. Oof. 92, and with an ambient noise of 88, that means you got very little to actually pick up on. At all stop, that noise drops even more. Of course, they're still susceptible to active sonar. They're not entirely invincible or just invisible in that sense. But they will be difficult to detect, especially as this is fairly decent weather, I'd say. If I push the sea state up, you're going to see that the ambient noise is going to increase, and your own noise is, of course, not. So at this point, the surface ships will have a lot more difficulty trying to detect you. Alright, moving on to the last category for now. That's the Japanese. The Japanese have a couple of fictional ships, starting as the Fuso here. Fuso, let's not do this 20 times speed. Fuso has a couple of self-defense options. The Evolved Sea Sparrow missile, the Ram missile, so the short-range defense. It also has a couple of Tomahawk land attack missiles, as well as a couple of anti-submarine options. But again, if I got a kilo, I'm going to shoot you at about 25 miles, maybe 20. So you'll never even hear me. And I'll definitely not approach your VL ASROC range. It's cute that you have this, but I doubt that I'll even worry about that. What can you launch, though? Well, Harriers. What can these Harriers carry, then? Let's have a look. This is the Hayabusa Taka. AIM 9X, AIM 120. So you got some nice AA range there. We have access to Mark 82s and GBU 12s, AGM 122 sidearms. I don't know why I would ever want to use something like that, because it is so short-ranged. The rest is even Hydra rocket pods, a couple of cluster bombs. It's definitely a land attack version. Second option is going to be launching a couple of KV-107s. Right now, they don't have a role, but I bet that in scenarios you can make these things work somehow as a couple of, let's say, helos that are transporting troops ashore. We have HSS-3B Sakana. This is an ASW helicopter. So we get access to the Mark 50, that's that better torpedo, and a couple of sonobuoys, a magnetic anomaly detector, and a dipping sonar. Well equipped for ASW duties. And the AH-1W Reaper. This one comes equipped with a couple of Hellfires. This one comes equipped with a couple of AIM 9s. And see, for this one, I imagine that is going to be useful to have the sidearm. Because you can pop up quickly, throw an 8.9 mile whistle at anything that happens to be threatening you, and pop down. But otherwise, for an aircraft, for a plane, like the Harriers, I don't think it's going to be that useful. This is not the only aircraft carrier that they get. They also get Shokaku and Yamato. Shokaku first. Again, some self-defense missiles, but it's not that impressive. Unfortunately, there seems to be something wrong with Shokaku, because she doesn't carry anything. No aircraft. That doesn't mean that they don't actually have access to aircraft, because I believe that they get access to the Super Tomcat, much the same as the Americans. Also, there's there's an F-15 2040C version in here, but more on that potentially in another video. No, they get access to the F-4EJ. The EJ Kai 2, I think. At least that's what they're supposed to have, and I think that also goes for Yamato. So we got AGN Harpoon out to 140 mile range, AIM 120 MRAM, AGM 123 Skipper, short range, AGM 65 Maverick, anti-tank, AGM 62 Walleye in case you want to get really close, and the rest is mostly combat air support. So they definitely have some options to deal with, well, pretty much everything on the board, depending on what you're dealing with in that particular scenario. This thing can do both anti-ship strikes and anti-ground strikes. Yamato has the same problem. No launch, nothing. It has a flight deck of 90 birds, so it can carry a heck of a lot. Its self-defense suite is also more advanced, but unfortunately there's nothing actually attached to this carrier deck. The Japanese do get some aircraft. The list here says the Super Tomcat, the EJ Kai, the ES-6 Prowler, the Harrier, the Viking, the Hawkeye, the Advanced Hawkeye, Sea King, Super Cobra, two versions of the KV-107, and the QH-50E Dash. That's a aerial drone. So the Japanese definitely get some aircraft carriers. And then we get two submarines. This is the Unryu, fictional submarine. Armed with the Type 89 torpedo. 40-mile range, 27 miles. Remarkably similar to an ATCAP. Although it's slightly slower than the ATCAP. It's a Japanese submarine-launched homing torpedo produced by Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. Replaces the unguided, yes I would hope so, Type 72 torpedo. Noise? 153? Good lord. I mean, you're never going to be a diesel-electric, nor are you ever going to beat a diesel-electric, but please tell me you can be more quiet than that. 134. It's not great. If I tell you to go all stop,
I'll stop. Maneuvering aye.
you might get it down to 130. If that. Kind of. Kind of. Yeah, 130. It seems quite like a Japanese Los Angeles class. They even get a towed array, they get an active sonar, of course, ESM, periscope, radar. And finally, the Zuiho. Zuiho also carries the Type 89 torpedo, same as her friend. But I imagine you might be diesel-electric? Nothing about her. It's an attack submarine displacing 3,500 tons versus 4,000 tons. Maximum speed 25 knots for the Unryu. Zuiho 28 knots. You're also doing 135.
Make my depth.
Dive.
4, 6, 6.
I think you might be quieter than your friend. All stop.
Stop. Maneuvering aye.
140 own ship noise. Sometimes you gotta push these things out of formation to get them to even to go all stop.
I'll stop. Maneuvering aye.
I think we're going to be at very similar levels. So, in that respect, I think these submarines are pretty comparable. The question is, why would you pick one over the other? Because I'm seeing 22 torpedoes here versus 12 there. You're even getting some Moss decoys. Do they have a different loadout, sonar-wise? Because that might explain it. BQR... These things get the BQQ5, the Unryu. And these things get the BQS. Wow, is that really that terrible? And the BQR21. That would make the BQQ5 a better sonar. Because your passive range is better and your active range is also marginal, well, a lot better. So... I'm not really sure why you would want to have either or both of these submarines in the game. I'd say just stick with one. Potentially Unryu, because you might be able to run away slightly better. Okay, that was almost 50 minutes of ship reviews, and I'm not even done. There are a lot of different ships added to this mod. There are also a bunch of planes added to the mod. There's a lot of different stuff to cover. Let me know if you want me to make a different video on aircraft. I think I've covered most of them already. But there are some, I think, Japanese planes and Chinese planes that I haven't covered that well. There's also the Su-47 Berkut. Let's have a look at that. Do you classify as a bomber? No. Attack aircraft? No. Interceptor? No. What are you? Oh, by the way, the B-52O is also in the game. This one carries a couple of very long-range Tomahawk options. And it carries this. The AGM-110L Tempest. Out to 2,500 miles. Hypersonic anti-ship missile. Normally, I'd say if you got that much range, good luck hoping something's still there when you get to it. But if you're flying at 10,000 knots, then yeah, you're gonna have that missile over very quickly. So you probably don't need to worry about it that much. Anyway, where is the SU? Here. Loadout. 55-mile range for the Adder, AA-11. Archer is just 10 miles. AS-11, anti-radiation missile, 40 miles. Fabs, bombs, AS-18. See, now we're getting somewhere. The Kazoo. Anti-surface TV camera guided. Out to 115 mile range, air to surface. Primarily for land attack missions. I'm not sure. I think you can also use this in an ASHM role. Okay, I'm done. Thank you for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this showcase. Link down below in the description. You do not need to install any very complicated mods, which makes it much more accessible. So thank you for watching this showcase. If you have any notes, please leave those down below. And I look forward to seeing you back here soon for another Sea Power video.